Good evening. I will now call to order the Chesterfield Township Planning Commission meeting on August 15th, 2023. I will call the roll. Mr. Miller is here. Mr. LaBelle? Here. Mr. Demink?
Here.
Mr. Leonard? Here. Mr. Renault? Here. Mr. Jaworski?
Here.
Mr. Klanowski? Here. Mr. Carr?
Here.
Mr. Brokart? All
Here.
present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Approval of the minutes of a prior meeting. I will make a motion to approve the minutes of July 18th.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the agenda. I will make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearings. We have one public hearing tonight. Restaurant with drive-through special land use 2023-10 C3 2.32 acres south side of 23 Mile Road west of Gratiot Ave, parcel ID 15-09-20-101-018. The address is 27322 23 Mile. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. DeVink. All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Osborne?
Thank you. So tonight we have an application for a special land use and site plan approval for a fast food restaurant and drive-through, a Chick-fil-A located on Gratiot Road, 23 Mile Road. The Planning Commission tonight should review the plans and make a determination if the special land use is allowable and if the site meets all zoning ordinance standards and their intent. There's quite a few items in the memo, both administrative and for Planning Commission discussion items. I'll go through my letter in a little bit more detail and focus attention on the Planning Commission discussion items. So starting on the bottom of page 3, you can see that the dimensional standards have all been met. And so then moving into the use standards for fast food restaurants, the circulation and access on the site will be recurring comments throughout my letter. The site or the proposal for the site has 2 ingress lanes, one from 23 Mile and one from the shopping center parking lot that's behind the site, and 2 egress lanes, one to 23 Mile and then one to the shopping center. There are 2 stacking lanes for the drive-through, 3 that provide 42 stacking spaces, and there are 82 parking spaces provided. The circulation seems problematic where 23 Mile, if you're coming in from 23 Mile and if you're exiting onto 23 Mile, particularly if you're trying to turn left, or if someone's trying to back out of the parking spaces into the stacking lanes. The ingress from the shopping center also may directly conflict with the intended drive-through stacking areas, giving no place to queue from the shopping area if the queue is already full to that point. So the applicant may be, or the Planning Commission may wish to ask the applicant how traffic will be directed through that area and from both entrances into the stacking area. And the Planning Commission may wish to discuss if there's enough space on site to handle the expected stacking needs. I'll note on page 5, there's item C that the Planning Commission may wish to discuss if this standard applies. The standard requires any freestanding use with a drive-through service facility or drive-up window located within a shopping center to be aesthetically compatible in design and appearance with the other buildings and uses located in the shopping center. So it'd be up to the Planning Commission to determine if this would be considered part of the shopping center and if that applies. Item D on the same page discusses questions about the circulation with the drive-through. And then the last two items in this section, E and F, discuss nuisances. We did receive a letter from Chick-fil-A discussing the concerns about the nuisances that were outlined, and the letter seemed to address nuisances related to stacking and vehicles, but the Planning Commission may wish to discuss any that might be related to the building. Page 6, there's more information about internal circulation and access and the stacking spaces. I'll just note that at the bottom of page 6, that 8 stacking spaces are required per the ordinance, and 42 have been provided. We haven't seen any information from the applicant about how they handle situations where the stacking space needs are exceeded. The top of page 7 notes that there's no bypass lane or bailout location. So even though there's quite a few stacking spaces, especially because there's quite a few stacking spaces, a bailout lane would be a good idea, and that's something the Planning Commission may wish to discuss with the applicant. I apologize, quite a bit of this is repetitive. At the bottom of page 7, we talk about pedestrian safety on the site. There are 3 areas with pavement markings that are proposed in the stacking lane closest to the sidewalk surrounding the building. And signs are also proposed within the crosswalk areas. So the Planning Commission may wish to discuss if this is sufficient to safely allow pedestrians to cross, and if the signage is sufficient as well. The middle of page 8 talks about accessory structures. The applicant has proposed to have 2 freestanding canopies located along the east side of the lot, one over the meal ordering area and one over the meal delivery area. Both canopies are outside of the required building setbacks and are located in the side yard. These canopies are compatible with the principal building, and are located so as not to be visible from sites to the west, and they may not be visible along much of 23 Mile Road. Those are considerations for the Planning Commission, as the canopies are located outside or within the setbacks, I should say, and so that requires Planning Commission approval. The bottom of page 8 talks about building materials. Tower brick has been proposed, so the Planning Commission can review and determine if that is acceptable. The top of page 10 talks about landscaping, the frontage landscaping. The number of trees has been met. I just want to point out that much of the landscaping is in one area along the frontage, so that's something the Planning Commission may wish to discuss with the applicant. In terms of lighting, which I'm addressing the comments at the top of page 11, there's just some administrative work that needs to be done to get the distance from the light poles to the curb, not the property line. And just to note that the average level of illumination has not been provided for the entire site, so we'll need that information from the applicant. I'm skipping ahead to page 13. Again, this has a little bit more to do with circulation. So specifically when it comes to deliveries, the applicant has provided information about turning movements for trucks, and it's been noted that a larger truck could catch the sidewalk as it comes through, and fire trucks may not be able to pass if cars are in the park spaces, particularly in the area near the dumpster. The applicant has noted that these deliveries and these sorts of trucks would most likely be arriving between midnight and 5 a.m. On the top of page 14, there's a standard related to noise-producing devices, and the applicant has noted that Chick-fil-A often uses employees in the drive-through lane taking orders on a mobile tablet to reduce potential noise, and that this site would not generate more noise than related uses, but the Planning Commission may wish to discuss any concerns they have about noise with the applicant. At the top of page 15, bollards are noted for to mount signs in the barrier-free parking spaces. We just need to know the location of those, and we can review those administratively. The bicycle parking information was provided, and it's compliant with the exception of the height. 33 inches is the height of the type of bicycle parking that was proposed. It should be 36 inches minimum. In terms of loading areas, this is at the top of page 17. Loading areas were not provided on the site, and again, the applicant submitted a letter saying that deliveries would be made between midnight and 5 a.m. by the larger trucks, and box trucks would be delivering during the day, typically during off-peak hours. We do have a 5-foot wide sidewalk that's being proposed along 23 Mile Road. And then again, the pedestrian crosswalks that go across the site to the building. And so again, you may wish to discuss any safety concerns with the applicant. Finally, the trash enclosure is proposed south of the building and north of the drive-through lanes. We do have details about the concrete apron and the screen enclosure. The enclosure is proposed to be dark brown, brick veneer with pre-finished metal coping for the gates, which matches the materials for the restaurant. But the Planning Commission may wish to discuss those materials. The last bit of my letter provides the special land use approval standards, which this applicant is seeking for this project. I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have. Thank you.
Push the button, sir, right in the center. There you go, thank you.
Good there? Yes, okay. Good evening, Justin Lurk. I'm our Principal Development Lead for Chick-fil-A covering state of Michigan. Chairperson and members of the commission, thanks for having us here. We're excited to talk about this. Ms. Osborne did a fantastic job just kind of going through the details here. We do have a few slides for you. I won't get too deep into the details. Is anyone not familiar with Chick-fil-A? I'll give the elevator speech if so versus the full-blown speech. But one key difference about Chick-fil-A, all of our locations are individually owned and operated by a franchisee. The difference between Chick-fil-A and most franchisees is you're only guaranteed one location. So you can't come in and say, I'm going to buy out the rights to Detroit. Is there a clicker to advance this? Okay, great. So that's one of the key differences, and a lot of people ask, like, how do you do it? What's the secret sauce? The secret sauce is our owner-operators. By having one location, that's your sole source of income, so you're at the store 6 days a week. We started back in 1946 when our founder, Truett Cathy, opened his first diner in Georgia, and then we opened up our first Chick-fil-A location in 1967 in a mall in Georgia. And then our primary growth has been through malls from 1967 till 86 was the first time we opened a freestanding restaurant that we're talking about here tonight. So from 1986 till now, we've been growing via the freestanding model. We still have our mall locations, licensed locations like airports, medical office buildings, et cetera. But we have just now over 3,000 locations in 48 states, Puerto Rico, and Canada. So relatively still a young company. Still young to the state of Michigan. We opened up our first store in Lansing back in 2015, and then we didn't open up our first store in the Detroit area until January of 2020. So pretty young company in the area, but big on giving back. Our owner-operators partner with a lot of local non-for-profits, giving back to the community in which we operate, schools, non-for-profits, et cetera. Above and beyond that, a ton of scholarships given to our employees that come and do the work on a daily basis, and just have some stats up there for you about that as well. But we can click on to the next slide. I think the biggest thing that always rings true to me, Truett mentioned we're not in the chicken business, we're in the people business. And that's like at the core of our mission statement is customer service. If you've ever been in one of our locations, hopefully you've experienced that great customer service and care. Here to serve a warm meal with a warm smile. But if we go on to the next slide, we can kind of get into the site itself. As Ms. Osborne mentioned, right on 23 Mile west of Gratiot, open vacant land right now, just over 2 acres. And if we get on to the next slide, we can go into the proposed building elevations. 4-sided brick building is typical what we're doing in the Detroit area, kind of withstanding the lovely winters that you all are accustomed to here. So looking to do a similar facade and 4-sided brick architecture that you see in some of our other freestanding locations across the metro area. I'm going to turn it over to you. And then I'm going to turn it over to Leslie. She's our engineer, and we can go through some of the site plan details. And obviously, we'll be here for any questions, and do want to hit on Ms. Osborne some of the items that she brought up as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, short. Good evening, everyone. My name's Leslie Accardo. I'm with PA Group. And so this is our preliminary site plan. We do have an entry that's in pretty much the same location as the existing entry into the site. Once you enter the site, you will proceed through to the drive-through. If you're not familiar with how the drive-throughs typically work, we call this a dual flex drive-through lane. And this gives the owner-operator a great deal of flexibility in how they operate the overall restaurant and the site. Chick-fil-A spends a lot of time doing research, development, tweaking things. They're constantly updating things and doing new prototypes. So this drive-through system allows them to operate the drive-through in a number of ways. One of them is to use both lanes all the way through. So you might have 2 cars in each lane, and you would go all the way through the drive-through from ordering all the way to the pickup in the same lane, and an employee would come out and deliver the meal directly to your car. In some locations, they're using the right-hand lane for mobile orders only. So if you placed an order online, you would just zip into the right-hand lane and go around to pick up your food. And then in some locations, you might start off, like in the breakfast hours typically aren't super busy, so they might actually start off with people in 2 lanes and then funnel them down to 1 lane for pickup. And so that's just a couple of examples, but they use them in different ways depending on staffing, weather, volume, all that sort of thing. So, but that is the intent, is to allow maximum flexibility. The drive-through, though, you'll notice we also have a patio on the side of the drive-through, so that will allow for outdoor dining as well. We do have a great deal of green space on the site as well, which is nice, so it's not just a sea of concrete. There's a landscape plan. It's not, doesn't show all the bushes and that sort of thing. It's just a quick color up, but just to show you how much green space we actually have on the site, which will be nice, especially if you're sitting on the patio. You'll be shielded with some of the bushes along the drive-through lane. This is a plan showing the stacking, and I'll apologize because I think I may have put 42 on the plans, but when I went through everything again yesterday, I came up with 40. Either way, I believe the code requirement is 9 spaces. We are showing 40 within the drive-through. So 95% of the time, we would expect to see all of the cars within the regular drive-through lane and not have any overflow. During grand opening, we might have a little bit more traffic, but it also allows us an extra 24 spaces outside of the drive-through lane. So that's a total of 64 spaces. I know some of the sites right around this area maybe have 12, like 6 in their drive-through, and you could probably spill over to another 6 before you get to 23 Mile Road. So just in comparison, we've got a lot more spaces than any of the existing drive-throughs that you have in the area. Yeah.
If you go back to the previous slide for a minute, I'll talk about the circulation that Ms. Osborne was mentioning. So the blue lines that you see on the north side of the page, that's merely for overflow if needed. as Leslie mentioned, 95, maybe 98% of the time should not be needed, but we thoughtfully designed this site because we're not part of a greater shopping center to be able to accommodate overflow traffic in busy times. So we can't control demand when people come to our site. We typically have peak hours around lunch and peak hours around dinner. So we wanted to have the ability, and this site allowed for us to have the ability to house any cars that could spill out of the drive-through. If they do, outside of the 40 cars that you see in the red, the blue areas would be temporary staging area till they get into the drive-through. Then the question is, how does site circulation work then, right? And if you've been to any of our Chick-fil-A's, you might be accustomed to someone greeting you to help direct the flow of traffic. That doesn't happen all day, every day. That typically happens during peak hours to help the free flow of traffic on and off the site. And those are dedicated people that are typically our owner-operators help train in traffic management. We've heard people like, hey, we don't want kids out there directing traffic. And that's a misconception in the fact that there are trained personnel typically underneath the guidance of our owner-operators that specialize in traffic management, just like we wouldn't put someone cooking the chicken that's used to taking orders up front. It's just a specialized trade. So that's something that is very near and dear to our hearts, that we want to have a positive impact on anyone that comes in contact with Chick-fil-A. How do we accomplish that on the site, making sure that it's free flow of traffic? How do you do that? If it gets busy, you send someone out to help direct with the vest. So on this site plan in particular, while I'm not the owner-operator hasn't been selected here, but should this be my store, I would send someone out towards the beginning of the blue area, and then someone between the blue and the red area, because there was also discussion like, hey, what if people are coming in from the shopping center and they're bifurcating the line if there are cars in the blue areas? Then that would just be management on site to where you could direct the people to enter our site, kind of loop down towards the dumpster, circle around and get into the blue queuing lane so you're not cutting in line. Again, that's if there are cars stacked up in that blue area. So I wanted to talk about the circulation. The access point into the shopping center to the south of us doesn't exist today. That's something that we're negotiating with that property owner to allow for that cross access, but we looked at that as more of an exit than an entrance. Obviously 23 Mile being the main frontage road. But as you all know, 23 Mile gets busy, right? Certainly during the peak hours, so we wanted to give our customers another opportunity to leave if you're wanting to go westbound on 23 Mile and don't want to put your life at risk and try to cross over 2 lanes of traffic and get into 2 more that are traveling westbound. So we felt like the cross access was important for this development, so that's why you see that on the site plan. But I did want to talk about the circulation, as Ms. Osborne mentioned that a few times. And then she did a great job talking about deliveries. Again, we get basically three different types of deliveries or service vehicles, if you will. Number one is the nightly key drops, and those do typically happen between the hours of like 11 p.m. or midnight and 5 a.m. when we're closed. So those are big rigs that come on site and they deliver every single day. So there would be no cars in the parking lot, and they've got free flow of the parking lot to be able to get on and off site while no one is there. And then we do have the daily box trucks for produce, bread, et cetera. So while there's not a dedicated loading zone, we could look at that and turn in some of the spaces to what I will say Plan West. It's the south side, but near the dumpster, about those 7 or 8 spaces near the dumpster. I think that would be a perfect loading area. Should one be required, we could certainly accommodate that. And then the third service vehicle would obviously be the trash truck. So we put the dumpster pad recessed far enough back to where if they do come during peak hours, typically our owner-operators will contract with them to where they show up during non-peak hours, but you can't control that. So again, we're designing the site to recess that trash enclosure into that landscape area a bit to where if the trash truck does come, they're not impeding the free flow of the one-way traffic on site. So I just wanted to touch on some of those points because we do spend a lot of time looking and thoughtfully planning these sites for site circulation, again, for a free flow of traffic on and off the site.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody from the general public like to speak? Now's your chance.
And I think we did have a few other slides, if you don't mind, if you advance to the next one. So I just wanted to talk about the journey in Detroit. Like I mentioned, the first store, Allen Park, opened up in January of 2020. And then we opened up 12 Oaks, actually, that was June of 2020 as well, so a little typo there on the 22. But number 2 is June of 2020, and we opened Northville and Shelby Township in January of 21. And then we opened up Woodhaven Downriver October of 21. Southfield was just this past September, almost a year ago. And then we opened up Monroe this past December, also downriver. And then Livonia just came online this past January. And then we've got Flint coming online next month as well. And then we've got a host of active developments. That's just a small list of what's there right now. And then I believe on the final slide here, sorry, 2 more slides, just again, the Detroit journey, with 8 freestanding units open, Flint being number 9, and then Somerset Mall and the Detroit Medical Center, really 11 locations to service all of Detroit. Detroit metro area is certainly a massive population. We understand that's not enough choices for our customers to have, so look forward to adding more online like this one in Chesterfield. But you can see there just a 10-year look ahead. Hope our goal is to add another 5 to 10 locations per year. So at minimum, hopefully another 50 locations over the next 10 years in the Detroit metro area. So what I would call us at the infancy stage of our entrance into the Detroit, with 9 freestanding locations next month. But one of our internal goals is to have a Chick-fil-A location within a 10-minute drive time of 80% of the population. So I've heard personally, just being in the market, like, thank you for opening Chick-fil-A's in Detroit. I don't have to drive to Toledo to get my chicken, which just astounds me that people would drive that far to get a chicken sandwich, but it happens. So what I wanted to end here with this slide is just showing the 11 different counties in the Detroit metro area. Obviously, Macomb, we've got 1 location open right now on Hall Road. And that location is certainly busy, and you can see why. With 874,000 people in Macomb County, there's just not a lot of choices yet. So one of the perceptions that we get is, man, Chick-fil-A is busy. We love Chick-fil-A, but we don't want that busyness here. And as we continue bringing more and more online, we're seeing the demand per location leveling off. So the column that you see called active new opportunities, we're looking at potential 14 more locations in Macomb County, this being one of them. And that would get us to a more reasonable rate. And what I mean by that is the last column, the adjusted market penetration. How many stores do we have per person? So again, looking at Macomb County, that if we're building out those additional 14, we're getting close to 1 store per 60,000 people. What's that mean? That's a lot of numbers, right? We grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. We opened up our first store in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been developing in Atlanta for 50 years. And in Atlanta, we have 1 store per 48,000 people. So I just want to give you some comparison. Like, this is where we're going, and this is the journey that we're on to get there. So we're thankful that you've allowed us the opportunity to come and meet with you, talk with you, answer the questions you have about the site. But we're super excited about the site design and layout and bringing this to the people of the township.
You done?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody from the general public like to speak? Sign in, state your name for the record. Sign in, state your name for the record.
So I just have a couple questions. My name is Mike Carley, been a resident here for 30-plus years. I love Chick-fil-A. I don't like that location where you guys are planning that. I have a question here, and I have seen some situations here. Gratiot's 5 lanes, right, south of 23. 23 Mile Road's 5 lanes. have a question here. Have you looked at, are there any bus stops right there on 23 Mile Road? Anywhere within, I don't know, 200 feet of the entrance exit on the 23? Because we all know we have a problem here in Chesterfield with some of the bus stops, right? Bus stops, it's there for 15 seconds to a minute, backs up cars behind it, and then when people get off the bus, it's never at a corner for obvious reasons, right? But backing up cars, people are crossing 5 lanes of Gratiot, walking at dark. I know we just went through and put in the lighting along the east side of Gratiot between, I don't know, 22 and 23 Mile Road a couple years ago, right? So I don't know about the lighting right there along that area, but concerned, are there any bus stops right there near that on either the north side or the south side? Concerned people getting off the bus, backing up traffic, people crossing. And as far as the inflow during peak times, just curious if there's any bus stations anywhere in that entrance exit to 23. If there's not, great. If there is, have a concern about people crossing. Not sure about the lighting right there on the south side of 23 then. So have you guys looked at, is there bus station stops on the south side or maybe even the north side?
We'll have somebody answer your questions when you're all finished.
Okay. All right, that was it. Thank you.
Do we need to fill out the address entirely or just name for now?
If you can.
Okay. My name is Kevin Miller. Lived in this area for roughly 15 years. I don't know if anyone's seen the general traffic flow on Hall Road, especially after Chick-fil-A opened, but even now, past the overflow lanes, they still have traffic kind of wrapped in and out of the parking area in that general vicinity over on Hall Road. And so, with that said, the entrance from the shopping area, I know it's up to the individual franchise owner to try and help figure out the traffic flow for that, but I suspect a lot of people in this area would try and use that primarily because 23 Mile is particularly hard to get into a business and especially out of a business if you're turning left. My second consideration would be, have there been any thoughts with regard to delivery services, Grubhub, DoorDash, and any excess parking for those as far as trying to get those services in and out faster on top of when, peak hours, because that's when people order online primarily as well, so that was mine. Sorry.
By the way, the time limit is 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Janice Young, 28714 Yorkshire. There's been a lot of social media activity about this. I tried to get as much of it going as possible to let people understand and know what's happening in the community. I don't think, that has got to be the absolute worst place that you could put a Chick-fil-A. The traffic flow out there is, I've lived out here since the late 80s, and that intersection has only gotten worse. They've widened it, put more lanes, it's just, there's more people. I don't know how the planning and zoning ever came to approving all the businesses up and down that corridor, but it's a nightmare. You can't get in and out. I see people complaining that you shouldn't turn into a left turn lane to get out. Well, you have to. You cannot make a left turn out of any business on 23 Mile Road without doing that. I did find an article today from the Charlotte Ledger, and here's a quote from that article. It says, "Why are we allowing a private company to hijack our publicly financed roads for the benefit of a single restaurant chain?" And that's how I feel. You can try to mitigate the traffic as much as you can, but if you build it, they will come. And Chesterfield exists well outside of 23 and Gratiot. why can't they find another place to do this where there's adequate space? BJ's, it's really empty over there. Plenty of room to get in and out, nice road with easy access out 2 different directions. Just to point out a few other things, Chick-fil-A has been sued in several states by adjacent property owners for infringements because of the traffic. In 2021, an investigation was done by a business publication called The Insider. They found dozens of instances of business complaints, police intervention, and significant traffic problems linked to Chick-fil-A's drive-through across more than 20 states in recent years. That's a lot. Is this something that we really want to get into? And the residents want a Chick-fil-A. We absolutely do. I'm not a fan of fast food. That's my opinion. The residents do seem to be favorable to Chick-fil-A, but that location has just got to be reconsidered. Thank you.
There, Mike Gordon, 50393 Bauer. So I come at this saying that I love Chick-fil-A, and I eat there frequently. Especially, I will drive and I'll wait in line at Shelby Township all the time. But the problem is going off of what everyone else has been concerned with, is that it's not that opposition to Chick-fil-A being in Chesterfield at all. It is the opposition to that particular location. And in looking at the designs here, this is coming from someone who has an expertise in regards to municipal mapping. It creates not only an issue, a logistical problem regarding traffic, but it also creates an economic issue as well. How is this going to affect all the businesses currently in that area as well? One of the things not taken into consideration for discussion tonight is the fact that much of the traffic is going to be coming in from the MJR parking lot. If anyone is actually familiar with that parking lot, it is basically like a war zone. It's all tore up and pretty much half destroyed. So if you're going to have a massive influx of traffic going in one direction to that restaurant, but the restaurant does not have ownership of the lot itself or the driveways through there, how are you going to deal with the issues for traffic going through in that manner? Furthermore, if you want to take a left turn into the restaurant area, be it coming into the Texas Roadhouse or MJR driveway or the direct driveway listed in that location there, it's almost impossible to make a left turn from 23 Mile. Anyone will tell you that it's driving down there. So you basically have to find a way to do like a Michigan left to come in and make a right turn. Now, what makes the restaurant at Shelby Township work very well is because it's on Hall Road and Shaner. Both roads are divided median roads. That allows for them to basically mean it's a right only to get into that parking lot for that shopping center and to have the accessibility for that Chick-fil-A. That Chick-fil-A is in the front of a massive parking lot area for a shopping center. But if you look at this is very confined to a very small property that has built up locations around it. It is boxed in. There are other much better alternative locations for this restaurant that not only would benefit everybody in the township, but would benefit the Chick-fil-A itself. It does not benefit the restaurant by being in that location because it is in a situation that is very difficult to access via vehicles. It is not pedestrian friendly, and thus the business could be harmful in a physical sense, but also be economically deprived of what could be in a better location. There are better locations. People have talked about other locations. I don't know the legalities or the actual financing to get that, but there is an alternative. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Hall, and I actually work as a construction engineer, so I am quite familiar with going over all the planning and zoning myself. I just have one thing that you would like to think about. If you're going over to that Meyer at 23 Mile Road, there is a no left turn lane when you are exiting that driveway. If there is a proposed Chick-fil-A, I believe that there should be one in equivalence to that, as well as an additive to our road system, which would be operating right turn lanes in and out. I do believe that anywhere over by Cabela's and BJ Wholesale would be a much better idea for implementing a Chick-fil-A. It is a lot wider area. There's plenty of acreage. Now, with that being said, will it become more populated over the years? I'm sure of it. Chesterfield has been up and coming. I've been living here for 21 years now, and it has changed immensely and drastically. So I would just like you to reconsider and think about the location property. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Anybody else like to speak? If not, I'm going to bring it back up to the commission. Mr. Demink?
This time I have nothing.
Mr. Brokart?
I have a couple questions for the Chick-fil-A people. Are you familiar with the Chick-fil-A on 28th Street in Grand Rapids?
Yes, I worked on that
So
one as
is
well.
the traffic circulation on this property different than the one on 28th Street?
The circulation, meaning like getting into the drive-through, ordering.
With the
and then-
stacked lanes and,
Yes, much different.
okay.
And the fact that at 28th and Beltline, there's not much room before the order points unless you're within the overall shopping center itself, right?
Right.
The parking field. So there's cones put up to help direct the flow of traffic. That's all off of our lease, parcel, but in concert with the ownership being able to direct traffic. So that's the key difference here, similar to Shelby Township as well. We're not part of a larger shopping center. Heard that Shelby Township was a bigger site. Actually, it's a much smaller site than what this is because it's only around our building and our drive-through.
Right, so this site is actually a little bit bigger. The campus would be a little bit bigger than we see in,
That's correct.
for me, that's
When-
the only Chick-fil-A
right.
I've ever been to.
Sure.
So forgive me for not knowing anything closer. But, so you're saying this one will be bigger, so we have 3 lanes instead of the 2 for the traffic flow?
Yeah, so this, what is this, 2.32? This is 2.32 acres. Most of our properties are on around an acre.
Right.
So it's
And
almost
the-
twice as big, mainly because we're not part of another shopping center that can't.
Right.
Um,
And there's
withstand.
no left turn onto 28th Street, and that Chick-fil-A is there.
Well, you can go to like one of 4 or 5 different ingress points.
You'd have to go to the end of the
Correct.
shopping plaza.
Correct,
Right.
to get to a traffic
But not
signal.
right in front of Chick-fil-A,
right.
right? Okay. There's a 204-page traffic study that you guys submitted.
Mm-hmm.
Can you summarize what that tells me?
Ooh,
I haven't read all 204 pages.
Yeah.
What's it
Do you
say?
want to take a crack at
What's
that?
it say?
Yikes.
Yeah.
You're right, it is a rather large document. Let me just get to that page real quick. So I guess one thing to note is that overall, that intersection is currently operating acceptably, with exception of 23 Mile and Russell, 23 Mile and Chesterfield Road, 23 Mile and Gratiot Avenue, and Gratiot Avenue and Cotton. So in other words, it's operating at acceptable levels except in those locations. So we're not, I think we'll all agree that 23 Mile and Gratiot, it's a busy area. As far as access to the site, we do believe we're going to be able to manage the stacking on site, to the best degree possible. As far as there is a recommendation to provide a full width right turn lane on 23 Mile Road, but there's nothing in regard to the left turn or restricting left turn access or anything like that. In the traffic study, there were no recommendations specific to that.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Oh, don't go anywhere.
We're not.
So a couple things. One, with the, compared to the location on Hall Road, I actually work not too far from there either, and I see how busy it is. In comparison, the drive-through setup there, how does it compare to this one as far as?
Number of cars.
Yes.
I don't have the exact number offhand, but
Just ballpark's fine.
yeah, ballpark, I think we can get about 27 to 30 on Hall Road. This one being 42 within the drive-through, and then another 24
Not
on site.
including
So,
the- Okay, then the other thing I'd like to point out, and it echoes some of the general public comments. I've actually lived here for, God, almost 20 years now. On 23 Mile Road, they're proposing to have a left turn out of there. I'm gonna tell you, that's gonna be near impossible. I don't
Right.
care what time it is.
yeah.
While the study doesn't seem to think that it doesn't think it'd be a huge problem with a 2 or 3 minute delay, I can tell you that is just not gonna function, and I would probably strongly recommend, by design, to put a no left turn there, right off the bat, because it's already troublesome there, but if anyone's gonna try and turn, it's just gonna be nightmarish, more than it is now, so that was the only thing I have.
Which is why we thought the cross-access with the theater behind was important, because
That would
traffic,
certainly help.
whether it's prohibited or not, traffic will make it difficult to maneuver. So
Yes.
wanting to give customers the options.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Carr?
There we go. So, yeah, this one's a tough one. Reviewing it and, understanding it. I have been to a few Chick-fil-A sites when my kids make me go there. So I am familiar with them, I just came back from Florida this weekend and they had me stop there in South Carolina. So, and it was interesting because, I've been to a few of them around the country, and it's amazing. I will give you credit. There's a cult following for Chick-fil-A. I mean, I got 4 teenagers, and they're constantly going to the one on Hall Road. And so, because it is busy quite often. And so when I saw your circulation pattern here, and obviously living in the community for a long time, I read the traffic study, I saw the recommendation, and I'm a huge proponent for right-hand deacceleration lanes. I mean, most of the time I pretty much make everybody do it that comes up here. It's anything on 23 Mile Road, because it's, if we all live here long enough, we all, drive fast down that road. I mean, it's just the way it is. Until somebody makes me stop, you're going 55, 60 miles an hour. It's a 50 mile an hour, so we're always going over that. So, number one, I'm a huge proponent for right-hand turn lanes. Now, whether that requires you to mirror your site, things of that nature, I can't give design recommendations, but I would propose a couple things for you to think about, since you don't have anybody in here yet. Because I do agree with you, your sites are small everywhere else. And so I did notice that this was bigger. So a couple things. One is I would like to see a DXL lane of some type. It's going to be hard to, obviously you can't do it where it's currently at, but again, something I think you do need to think about, because it will help flow. Again, if this is the site that you move forward with for us to consider, in future meetings, I do hear the other residents as well. I mean, there are other sites. I know why you want it here, because this is the main intersection. So I get it from a business perspective. I also get it from, being here, for a long time myself. So I understand that. But if this is where you're going to pursue, I do think you need to consider a couple things. One is that right-hand deacceleration lane, I think, will definitely help as vehicles are going. I do think that most people won't make a left-hand turn there. Most people are going to go through the parking lot. So I think you do need to look at that agreement that you have with that property owner, because I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to come in and out of there. I have a feeling people are going to park there, so then I think you need to think about how pedestrians are going to walk from that parking lot into your building, because I think a lot of people will see all that stack up and they'll be like, screw it, I'm not going in that parking lot. So I'm going to park out here and I'm going to walk in, and now they got to cross a lot of car traffic. So I think you need to look at that. The other thing is, I don't like the 3 stack-ups. I know why you do it. I know there's people out there with their little headsets, I think it's cute, but I don't think when it comes to people, and in today's time where people are impatient and cruel and mean, I think that you need to try to figure out a way to separate pedestrians from vehicles in any situation. So what I didn't understand was, and I think you can easily do it, again, not giving you design recommendations, just giving you my thoughts of what I'm gonna be looking at the next time you come back, is I see no reason why your extra stack-up lane isn't all the way to the west, perimeter property, and you move your parking down so that you totally leave that bypass out. It's out of, so you would shift that west bank of parking down to the east, and then you do your bypass, a single bypass lane around, around the perimeter of the site. Now that leaves your entire, because I can tell you what we've all probably been in if we're all old enough, is you're in your car, you want to back out, and you're stuck because somebody stacked up behind you. We're impatient people now. I don't want to be stuck behind people being stacked up, and I think you're going to cause issues between people and vehicles. So one thought is, make a bypass lane, because you already, like you said, you already have 42 stack-ups, you only require like 8. So, why not do a loop road around it, just like how you're looping around to the east? Just shift that parking to the east, do your loop stack up around, and then you separate that, because the other issue I see here too is if you are ever doing that double stack up in the middle of that parking lot, number one, you're stopping people from backing out, and I know I won't want to wait. Number two, you now have cross traffic coming in from that parking lot from the MJR, and then they got to cross into vehicles trying to make a left into your stack ups that are already stacked up. And I just think that there's a lot of interference there that needs to be thought out, where if you shift that parking to the east, you go around, now people can come in and out of there. At least it cleans up some of those parking constraints, and it's just something to think about, because I do think there's a lot of things going on there, and unless your traffic controllers are really monitoring it, I think it could be out of hand. Because I mean, even driving down Hall Road when I drive by the Chick-fil-A, which I've never been to that one, but mostly because I don't want to wait, but they're still stacked up there, and I see them stacked up into that parking lot all the time, and that's not right. You're to control your own traffic within your site, and so I think you need to take a look at, to do that. That's just a couple of my thoughts on how you maybe can think outside the box to do that. So, yeah, I mentioned about the pedestrians, and so I do want you to think about pedestrians coming in from the MJR parking lot, because I think you're going to get that, and I think that's something that you need to think about. I think signage, they got to come back to us eventually for signage, but no matter what, signage is going to be a big thing. So I'm definitely going to understand, again, difference between keeping vehicles out of pedestrian interferences as much as you can. I think your turning radiuses are pretty tight, and I think they're pretty optimistic. Typically, you never show turning radius within a defined parking spaces like you do for the big 18-wheeler type things that are coming for delivery. But I guess, you can't control those to come off hours, so I guess that's a feasible one. But, typically you don't want to show that, those. So I don't know what you can do with that one, but it is something, we're going to have to understand and have things in writing in regards to how you're going to manage that. I noticed in some of your details you have painted, the garbage gates, and I think bollards even said they were painted, and which we don't allow painting. Things need to be pre-finished either from the manufacturer, or they need to have plastic sleeves for the bollards, or stainless or something of that nature. So make sure you review our ordinances for that, because obviously we want things that are maintenance-free as much as possible, and that will stand up over time from an aesthetic standpoint. And I think outside of that, I think those are my comments, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Domingue.
One thing I should mention to the people from Chick-fil-A and to everybody in the audience, 23 Mile Road is being reconstructed from Chesterfield Road to Gratiot next year by the Road Commission. We did it last year with money from the Township and the Road Commission, but we only did like a thin coat to make it better. But 23 Mile Road is being reconstructed from Chesterfield Road to Gratiot next year. And that was per the Road Commission. That was brought up at a board meeting just recently. I just wanted to put that out there so everybody knows that 23 is going to be jacked up.
I apologize, I have one more. The striping that I see in your stack-up lanes, the double lanes there, I assume that's just striping, that's not like a curb of any type, so
That's
vehicles
correct.
can get back and forth.
That's
'Cause
correct.
I did want to reinforce that one too. I had that here as my bypass, I forgot to ask that one. Just because, again, if, I want to make sure vehicles can go around in case somebody stalls and can't get out, right? Someone's gonna have to go out there and people don't want to get stuck.
Right.
You know, so most drive-throughs you go to, you can just make a right, you're like, I'm not waiting anymore, and zip out. So I just want to make sure that, you know, that's addressed as well. Because at the end of the day, I mean, we're members of this community, but we're also consumers too. So a lot of us have been experienced, you know, we've all experienced those things, so we try to avoid those for our residents. So, all right, I'm good, thanks.
Mr. Palin, can you tell us what our requirement is for stacking?
Drive-through, fast
Yeah.
food drive-through, I believe it's 9 stacking spaces are
Nine, and
required.
they're gonna have how many?
42?
Yeah, but I'm curious about that one. So it's 42 if you go all the way to the window, but it's really, I counted, it's only like, I say only because you see Chick-fil-A's. There's never only 9. So there's really only 26 from the order window, if you will, to the actual, where it's gonna start encroaching in on the parking lot. So I'm just saying, like, it's 42, I got it, but that's assuming you got 18 people that already ordered and are waiting for their food in 2 lines. So I'm just
I mean,
saying,
that's
like,
how the ordinance defines stacking spaces, is
Yeah.
from the window
Yeah,
back to
okay.
the entrance of the drive-through, so.
I gotcha. Yeah, but that was the only thing I wanted, you know, because unless you're taking orders really quick, you could have that issue.
Thanks.
That's all.
Mr. Jaworski?
All right, I got some things to say. I want to first thank everyone that came out from the public today to voice their opinion. Because contrary to popular belief, we do listen to what you say, okay? We take that to heart, we look at that with the township planning, we look at it with every business that comes here, and we look at what's best for our residents and our residents only. Everybody on this board or this commission, with the exception of Mr. DeMake, is here, we're not elected, we're here by choice, okay? But I want to continue to say that everybody, the great thing is everyone here talked about the safety of our community. So that's really cool. The traffic is a major issue in this township, hands down, no matter where you go, okay? Now, one business added to that corner, no matter what the traffic flow is going to be, is going to impact that corner in the traffic, okay? No matter any of those, you can't turn left out of Meijer, Home Depot, Target, Starbucks. I mean, I can go down the line. So if we take that out of the equation, traffic is an issue. Here we have Chick-fil-A that wants to come to our community. We are a growing, positive community at a corner that's attractive to businesses like Chick-fil-A. Not other small businesses. I mean, this is a large, reputable organization that puts a lot of pride in what they deliver, and they deliver to the community and the surrounding areas, okay? When I read all the people on Facebook complaining about, why can't we get this to our township? Why can't we get this? Why can't we get a fruit market? I mean, come on, we've got companies that want to come here, they want to do business with us. We're open, we're friendly to businesses that want to work with us. So if we can all agree on that, I think everybody on this board, I think everybody in the audience all agree on that, all right? The one thing that this commission cannot control is the roads. So if you're so passionate about safety, please, please write letters, call your road commission, call the state, you know, people that are commissioned to fix our roads, call them, okay? Because we can't control that. And if you want to talk about other locations, there's a lot of other locations in Chesterfield, some of which is too close to water, which gets no traffic. A lot of companies don't want to go there. We've already been dealing with that for years. Now, if you want to go over by BJ's and that corner, that's got a lot of issues too. All right, I live right there on 21 Mile. We were here 2 weeks ago to talk about a little repair shop that's going to come in that are looking at 8 to 10 customers a day. People were concerned about that. Coming out of BJ's, coming out of Cabela's, you make a left out of there on the 21, there has been so many accidents there. Flipped cars, all right? So my point is, we've got a reputable organization that wants to come to our township. We need to entertain them, we need to think about them. But overall, the problem, I mean, everything I hear here is traffic problems, traffic problems, traffic problems. And the one resident that came up and said, she brought concrete evidence of other communities that have issues and that we might want to research that. That's great. That's the stuff we want to hear. We don't want to hear about, you know, the roads, the traffic, the deer that look so pretty. We have to really take these things into consideration. So thanks for pointing that out. I really appreciate that. But again, safety is an issue, but in the bigger picture, we want to bring good, reputable, strong companies to our community so that other people want to bring their families here as well and grow strong, good families within Chesterfield. So that's my point. This is a tough one, because if you look at the property, it might not be fitting, but you got to look at, you know, the property itself. Can it support a business? And from my perspective, it does. They're meeting all the requirements. I think that we just, as a board, or as a commission, our recommendation goes to the township board who has the final approval. So we might recommend one thing and they'll turn it down. So keep it up, keep up the ideas in bringing things to our attention. And that's basically it. I want to thank Chick-fil-A for considering Chesterfield and thank everybody for their input.
Thank you. Mr. Klonowski?
Yeah, in general, I think it's a pretty good plan. I think Brian brought up some good points about internal circulation. The only thing that I would strongly suggest is the deceleration lane. That I think is a major safety issue on 23. And I like the cross access. You know, in the past we had to try to push pretty hard to get cross access to alleviate the pressure on those roads. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
Well, you'd mentioned early on that Chick-fil-A has built about 3,000 locations so far. So with that said, I would think that they become very, very good at controlling the traffic flow on site. The part that I'm concerned about is out on the roads, outside your site. And I've been in this township for 40 years, and I've seen the growth. I remember when 21 Mile Road was gravel from Gratiot as far as you could go west. And it's all changed, and it's all good. But my concern with the traffic that you can't control or anybody else, and the amount of people that want a Chick-fil-A in the community. We just got done with having to deal with cannabis locations in this township. It was voted in, so we had to deal with it. And some of those locations are just so busy. We went and visited a few just to see how they functioned, because we had to deal with all the things that are going on with those businesses. And there's so many people that are going to the cannabis, not all of them, but a lot of them, they go to the cannabis stores, and the traffic is just horrendous in and out. They might control it on site, but they can't control the roads. And this kind of reminds me of that type of traffic flow all day long for now. I mean, eventually, it's like cannabis. You put 10 more locations and they're all going to thin out. But how many years down the road before there's 10 more Chick-fil-A's close enough? And I just think the traffic is a real problem for me. The cars going in and out of that restaurant all day long, 6 days a week. Sunday's maybe the only day that might be better to go shopping at Myers, since you won't be dealing with the traffic that you guys generate. I'm saying it in a good way, that your company is doing very well. But I'm going to have a hard time with the added, I don't even know how many more cars per day will go in and out of the restaurant. You might be able to handle them in and out and on the, within,
but I don't know how many cars will end up being added for that business versus maybe a different type of business that it doesn't have that amount of traffic flow. So all the other stuff with the site, on the site, move this and move that, that all can be worked out. But the amount of traffic that's gonna come and go, nobody can work that out, as far as I'm concerned. So that's really my biggest problem. The other locations, you know, it reminds me of the movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. I think that Chick-fil-A could put a restaurant up just about anywhere, and people will come to you. And if that's Cabela's or somewhere else, that's something that'll work itself out. But that's all I have. It's really just the traffic in and out. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. LaBelle?
I'm typically the last one that speaks, so Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind, if we can start going through the list of questions that we have.
Sure.
Obviously, traffic is an issue. It's been brought up many, many times. We're not going to have cars stacked on 23 Mile Road. It just is not going to happen.
Yeah.
What kind of a contingency plan does Chick-fil-A have to alleviate that situation?
Yeah, I think the contingency plan you saw was the site plan. So again, you know, I've worked on every single store that we've opened in Michigan, the 22 plus locations from Holland all the way over to here up to Traverse City and down to Kalamazoo. This is the largest site that we have in the state of Michigan. So I want that to be heard. Like, this is the largest site that we've got in the state of Michigan from a land mass standpoint. So the contingency plan is the overflow traffic on what you see on the north side of the site there, the additional 24 cars. To get 60 cars on the site, like somebody's mentioned it before, if you drive by and see that many cars, like, we do have people that don't come by because they see cars and we're busy, right? You know, comparing it to, I don't want to get in a comparison game, but you don't have anything else in the area that can have 60 cars on site. We don't have another Chick-fil-A outside of maybe Livonia because there's nothing else open in that development. It's a 7-acre development that could house this many cars on site. So if you put 64 cars in the drive-through for Shelby Township, you're way back to all the big boxes, which doesn't happen. You know, you're not seeing that today, right? So that's the contingency plan, the cross access with the theater. That's a backup to a backup plan as well.
Okay. Have you had conversations with the theater about stacking cars in their parking lot?
No.
Is that a possibility? I mean, you know, as Mr. Carr stated, you know, we're not here as part of your design team.
Right.
Just as a recommendation, something to think about. You know, because I've noticed that I did visit stores,
Mm-hmm.
and I did watch traffic flow, and you've got those little cylinder cones, orange cones that you can move around and what have you to direct flow of traffic.
Yeah.
And just as a consideration, stacking cars and, you know, in that other parking lot. And it goes back to what Mr. Carr said, as well as making sure that there is a way that the pedestrians can get out of that parking lot into your site.
Right.
So just as a consideration. There was a question about the, you know, and I'm going to go through and state the things that Ms. Osborne brought up in her letter to the folks. The consideration of the color of the bollards being bronze rather than yellow. I personally don't have a problem with that. If anybody else in the commission does, you know, please say something, and, you know, I don't think it's a problem. 20-foot light spillage on the sites, stacking. Again, do you have any plans on putting a decel lane on 23 Mile Road? You know, I did take the time to read the traffic study, and the only recommendation, as Leslie had mentioned, is that they recommend that you do put a decel lane. Mm-hmm. Have you considered that?
Yeah, that's a recommendation in the traffic study. Whenever that happens, that's a discussion in a public forum like this. So, you know, if that's something that the commission would like to see as a condition of approval, then that's something that we would obviously have to do if we move forward with the site. Right?
Thank you. Another thing I'd like to bring up is our ordinance. You have a building envelope, an area that you can build on in the site. Your canopies are exceeding that. In the past, this board has allowed those canopies to be on outside of the building envelope area car washes, other areas. I personally don't have a problem with it. If anybody else in the commission has a problem with it, because they do have this situation with the canopy over top of the drive-through. Another thing I'd like to bring up is when I did visit one of the sites, they have like a screening material, a black mesh on the west side of the building. That's not going to fly. Is there a reason for that mesh?
That would probably be the Hall Road location.
It is.
The reason for that is, with the northwest wind, one of the prevailing colder winds, trying to limit the amount of wind coming into the drive-through window, creating that wind tunnel. So that's really the purpose of it. It's not on every location, but that, with this one, our drive-through door/window would be facing east, not west.
Also, something that Ms. Osborne brought up was nuisance odors. What kind of odors are given off from your cooking apparatus and anything that's involved in your process?
I mean, obviously, we're frying chicken, right? Chicken and fries. So, but we've got the state-of-the-art hoods from Halton Hoods that collect everything and shoot everything straight up into the air. But if that's what you're asking.
Okay. So you do have some kind of a filtration system, something
Yes, sir.
that
And they're on a routine.
Reduces the amount of smoke and things
Odor,
that are
and
emitted into the air.
those filters on a routine maintenance to change regularly.
Okay, great. Landscaping, we're good. Also, Ms. Osborne brought up that there was there is no indication of the drawings that the light pole bases are 2.5 feet off the curb. We'd like to see that on the drawing. We don't want those light pole bases up against the back of the curb where a car could hit it. So we'd like to see that designation on the drawing. That can be handled administratively, but
Sure.
we do want to see that.
Okay.
Also, the distance of the bollards from the walls in the drawing as well. From any kind of a structure that a bollard is in front of, we need to see that dimension on the drawing as well. And this, again, can be handled administratively.
Sure.
That's all I have, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you.
And there was one question by the first gentleman that
Bus stop.
spoke. Do you have an answer for him on that?
Yeah, I looked up. It looks like there's a bus stop on Gratiot south of 23 Mile, but I do not see a bus stop on 23 Mile.
Thank you.
I got another thought to throw at you for 30 seconds.
We're all done. No.
Do you want me to answer a few other questions that were posed by the public? One gentleman asked about Grubhub. I think it was you, sir. Our owner-operator, we don't dedicate those spaces on site, but a lot of times the owner-operators will put signs up for third-party delivery with a parking lot this big. It would certainly be able to accommodate, Grubhub, Uber Eats, you name it, third-party delivery. We talked about too busy. I just want to reiterate the fact that this is a 2.3 acre site and very, very atypical for a Chick-fil-A where we're used to seeing a 1 acre site. One comparison, a lot of our locations are within a shopping center, so it's not a true comparison because we're only leasing or purchasing the building envelope in the drive-through. We don't have the big acreage, but if you look downriver on Monroe, and I don't want to get into, we're not Monroe, we're Chesterfield Township, right? And not comparing municipalities, but it's a standalone site like this, about 1.7 acres versus 2.3. We opened in December of 22. All traffic was contained on site grand opening weekend. No one spilling outside of the drive-through lanes that can accommodate 30 cars after the grand opening weekend. So I just want to give, we're going way overboard here in my mind on trying to accommodate everything on site with another 24 cars on top of the 42s, just so we're not impacting 23 Mile. So I just want to give people a frame of reference there as well. There was talk about maybe putting pedestrian crossing from the MJR side as well, while our property owner has negotiated cross access. We don't have the right to park over there, so by putting a sidewalk to their site would kind of violate that and kind of promote parking off-site when we're offering 82 parking spaces on site. So that's why we don't see a sidewalk going to MJR, because we don't legally have the right to tell our customers to park over there. So just wanted to give some design context there. And I know you had mentioned 23 Mile to be reconstructed. I know the traffic study recommended the decel lane. Would love to look at the plans, just see what they have for the reconstruction so we can kind of coordinate efforts there as well. But I think we hit most of the questions here. Again, loud and clear on traffic. You know, looking at the one location in Macomb County, this potentially being number 2 of 14, 16, we're on our journey to continue to expand in the Detroit area, and just excited to have the opportunity to be talking to you guys today about this location. So.
You made a comment about that walkway to the parking lot, and that was alluding to my comment. What you have to remember is that that's an MJR. It's a movie theater. So it's not that you're promoting people to park there, but there'll be a lot of people, teenagers, that will go to a movie and then be like, hey, I'm gonna walk to the Wendy's. I'm gonna walk to the Chick-fil-A.
Sure.
So it's not promoting it, it's accepting human behavior and addressing it so that from a pedestrian standpoint, you're again, clearly defining vehicular versus pedestrian, and you're making it safe for all people. So it's, when I say crosswalk, it's no different than putting your crosswalk, you know, to the sidewalk along 23 Mile Road, because there could be people that work in any of those restaurants that don't have driver's license that are gonna run across 23 Mile Road to get Chick-fil-A because they're on break from Myers, or that you're not gonna stop it, but you have to try to create as safe of an environment as possible for those pedestrians. So I just wanna make sure we're clear on what the expectation is. I understand legalities, but I also understand human behavior, and you know, that's the reality. I mean, I've been there with my kids and they're like, hey, let's go. And I'm like, well, instead of starting the car and driving 100 feet, I'm like, all right, let's just walk to Wendy's, right? So we've all done it. So I just want to make sure you understand what's there. It's a movie theater, and that's what happens.
Sure.
So that's all.
So
if it can be addressed, think about it. If it can't, then that's fine.
Thank you.
Mr. Klonowski?
Yes, what is the service time per customer?
In the drive-through?
Yes.
So that'll vary location to location. I know our operators are, you know, right now looking at around 90 seconds from order time through pickup as the goals. So, which is why, you know, you see the canopies on there to give a protected area for our team members to come out and take orders, give the kitchen more time. So when you do get to the pickup door, pickup window, your food is bagged, your drinks are ready, you've already made payment, and you can pick up your food and go.
So it would, depending on the volume, I would think, too, correct?
Correct. Yeah, depending on the volume, time of day. A lot of people are talking about traffic, so I want to try to normalize it here a little bit as well. Traditionally, in this market, we're seeing anywhere from, these are transactions, so a transaction doesn't equal a car, right? We have multiple cars that'll come in and have 2 or 3 transactions at a time. Everybody's got their app, they want to get their points. I've got 2 or 3 transactions per car, but we're used to seeing anywhere on average from 1,200 to 1,800 transactions for a day, you know, and we're open from 6:30 a.m. till 10 p.m., so call it a 15-hour span. So we're not bringing, a lot of times I feel like there's a perception we're bringing 20, 30, 40,000 people to the store, right? It's anywhere from 1,200 to 1,800 transactions a day. That's inside and through the drive-through, or Grubhub, Uber Eats, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Did you say 90 seconds a day, or 90 seconds?
From order to
Mike.
pickup, yes.
Mr. Palin?
I just wanted to provide a couple of points of clarification. I believe it was said this would go to the board, but it does not. Some applications do, but a special land use and site plan is the sole, planning commission is the sole approving body for that. And also, I think Mr. Carr had brought up signs coming back. They don't typically come back, but if like site circulation signage is something you're interested to see how that would work, that's something you should let the applicant know. That way they can provide it, but that would typically be approved administratively after.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see your signage.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Thanks for clarifying that one.
When you said come back, that threw me off guard.
Yeah, you're gonna have to come back for that one, so. Yeah, thanks for clarifying, because we are used to thanks for clarifying, because it's special land use, that was the difference then. Because we are used to doing the site plan review and then signage comes later based on, so thanks for clarifying that, so make sure that's in the minutes.
Thanks.
But again,
And-
signage is very important to us as well for clear line of communication, clear flow of traffic, et cetera.
And
but-
so with that cross-access agreement with MJR, because we do make, a lot of businesses have them. The new Taco Bell down 23 Mile, they put a roadway in the back so they could get to all 4 restaurants back
Sure.
there.
Yep.
So that is something that's really needed in that site,
We agree 100%.
yeah. With nothing else, I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support?
We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Demink. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Our normal procedure is to wait till our next meeting, but there's a lot of work to do here, so I'll poll the commission to see what they want to do. Mr. Jaworski? 2 weeks. Mr. Klinowski? Mr. Leonard? Mr. LaBelle?
Wait.
Mr. Miller, wait. Mr. Carr? Wait. Mr. Renault? Mr. Burkhart? 2 weeks? Is that enough time to get all this stuff in order? 2 weeks?
So just to clarify, what is the expectation in the 2 weeks, just so I
Yeah.
know?
Well, you gotta have it in by Thursday, so. No, we could give you up to 6 meetings. It's no,
So you would want to see like revised plans addressing some of the concerns today?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So do you want us to give you up to 6 meetings?
I think we can handle it in 2 weeks. I
Okay.
mean, we could have it back to you in 2 weeks if that works.
Jonathan, when do they need it? Yeah, just,
I would just go up to 6 meetings, and then at any point that they're ready to come back, we'll,
Perfect.
go ahead and make that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to postpone making a decision for up to 6 meetings. The applicant has an opportunity certainly to come before us before the 6th meeting. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to postpone.
Support. We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. Any motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll do the review, we can do it in a timely manner. LaBelle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item A is Warehouse Facility Site Plan 2023-13. It's 42 acres at the 23-square industrial complex. The parcel ID is 15-09-16-275-003. The address is 52153 Sierra. The applicant is present this evening, as well as the engineering firm, so I would ask that the applicant come to the podium, and we have questions. Give a presentation, and we have questions. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Bennett Donaldson with J.B. Donaldson Company. We're the sponsoring developer and general contractor for this project, Gestamp. We're located at 37610 Hills Tech Drive in Farmington Hills, Michigan. This is a 460,000 square foot manufacturing warehouse plant to be constructed. It's precast building, 27-foot clear, state-of-the-art to supply the GM Orion plant and their EV production. As you know, or maybe you don't know, GM's putting in a large addition on their plant, plus they're building a new EV battery plant in Auburn Hills on the old Palace site, about 1 million square feet there. So this particular plant's not going to supply that plant, but it's just to sort of, demonstrate that as you know, GM's on a big push to go EV by, 2030. So this is an important piece of that goal. This plant would service that plant. So roughly, this plant would operate on 3 shifts. There's not a ton of truck traffic, 5 to 10 semis a day, inbound and outbound combined. Roughly looking at about 380 employees on 3 shifts. So, but pretty clean site, clean building, rectangle. They have a large robotic welding line with a bunch of support facilities inside. So our civil engineer, PEA, our architect, FA Studios, and Gestamp are all here to answer those specific questions as it relates to design or what's happening inside the building and whatnot. So, and then I'm happy to answer anything you have.
Ms. Osborne, did you have any comments?
Sure, I would, thank you. I would like to share with the commissioners that we did receive updated plans that were not in the packet. We received plans that were dated August 4th. So I'll briefly go through the changes that were made, or go through my letter and update you based on the changes that were made. So the applicant did update the plans to provide the information that's needed about the dimensional requirements. They were all compliant before, but that was just confirmed in their updated information. The one piece of information that was not included in the original plans or that couldn't be confirmed as compliant was the building height. The proposed building height is 39.82 feet, which is compliant with the consent judgment requirements. Item 8 on page 4 lists out all of the M1 standards, and the applicant did provide a note dated August 7th indicating that those standards will be met. But the Planning Commission is welcome to discuss any of the concerns that they may have about the site with the applicant tonight. Continuing on to page 5, building materials is item 10. The updated plans provide details of the building materials, which included concrete panels, split face, CMU block, and metal paneling and coping. Item 11, the rooftop screening and outdoor storage. Rooftop equipment is proposed and will either be screened if visible, and is required to be screened if visible from the property boundary, or not seen from the grade. And so the applicant noted that they'll follow those requirements. I just wanted to note for the Planning Commission that the screening, if it is required, must be approved by the Planning Commission, although we talked in pre-planning about how that could be approved administratively if the Planning Commission felt comfortable with that. The applicant hasn't noted whether or not outdoor storage is proposed for the site, so that may be something you wish to discuss. They did confirm that there are no plans for accessory buildings. Item 13, the loading and unloading zones were confirmed. There's 28 loading zones. They're proposed in both the rear yard and the side yard. Currently, the loading zones are only permitted in the side yard if they're approved by the Planning Commission, so that's something that you'll want to discuss with the applicant tonight. The height for the loading zones was confirmed to be at least 14 feet, and the loading areas were updated and provided on the new plans. Another item for Planning Commission discussion tonight would be parking. The applicant is required to have a total of 452 spaces based on the uses that are provided and the amount of space for each of those uses. The applicant's proposing to provide 300 spaces, which includes 8 barrier-free spaces, and land bank 229 spaces for the future, which then would exceed the required number of spaces. There's criteria for land banking on page 6. There's 6 items that the Planning Commission should review and determine if the land banking is acceptable. We did get some updates on the space dimensions, and those are all compliant. We are missing some information about the maneuvering lane width, but we can review that administratively. Going to page, let's see, the bottom of page 6, top of page 7. Just wanted to note that the applicant's proposing to add 2 additional access drives from Sierra Drive, one at the north end of the site and then one at the south end. That's something that the Planning Commission should discuss if that is acceptable, given the location of driveways on adjacent sites and across the street, turning movements, and traffic volumes. The applicant provided details about bicycle parking. The proposed rack is similar to the inverted U design that's required by the ordinance and provides at least 2 points of contact for the bicycle. It's anchored in concrete as required. The design is 27¼ inches tall, but the ordinance requires a minimum height of 36 inches. At the bottom of page 7, lighting is discussed. We did get details on the lighting. The lighting is compliant in that it's shielded downward, it's stationary, it's constant in light intensity and color, doesn't include neon or bare bulb illumination. The lighting height requirements are not compliant, however. The height needs to be the lesser of the height of the building or 25 feet. The lighting that's proposed is 32.5 feet tall, and the building height exceeded 25 feet. So the height difference here is 7.5 feet. The Planning Commission can modify that requirement based on the position and height of the buildings, other structures and trees on site, and the potential off-site impact of the lighting. But you cannot allow anything more than 35 feet, so that should be discussed. We do need to know where the lighting poles are located. The light poles provide a note indicating that light poles will be set back 2.5 feet from the curb, which is compliant. The photometric plan showed average illumination meeting the maximum everywhere on the site except for the road areas and the side door drive area, which were 7.1 foot candles and 8.3 respectively. And the uniformity ratio was met everywhere on site. So the lighting should be adjusted to meet requirements. The bottom of page 8, there was another update about frontage trees, or just clarification. They do meet the 52 required frontage trees with 4 existing trees included in that count. At the very end of the letter is a note about trash removal on page 9, and a note was provided to indicate that the materials will match those of the building, which the Planning Commission may wish to review. And finally, I apologize, I did not have this in my letter. Sidewalks are required, and there are currently none in the plans. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Mr. Demink? Mr. Brokart?
I'm good too.
Mr. Renaud? Mr. Carr?
Yeah, well, can you tell me again what the function of the building is going to be? Like what you're going to be doing in there? You said a robotics line. So
Yeah.
Tell me what you're going to be
I'll let
manufacturing.
Gestamp answer that question.
Hi, my name is Scott Hemish. I'm the tax director for Gestamp North America. We are going. Is that better? We are going to have assembly and welding cells in there. So we'll be bringing blanks in from other plants and ultimately taking parts from other plants, combining them together in our assembly, using the assembly robots, and then ultimately sending them off to the customer.
So is it primarily steel?
Yes.
Okay, so you're kind of like, you're going to be, so assembling components that'll be going out to GM?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll be getting like, but you don't do any, stamping or nothing. You're going to get preformed parts that you're
The
going to be doing welding,
stampings
whether
will all
they're-
be done at other plants
Got
and
it.
shipped to us here.
Okay, so primarily just welding. There's no plastics or nothing of that nature?
No.
No. So strictly welding components together to make assemblies that'll be going out. Nothing like body parts like fenders and things of that nature, it's smaller components. Okay, okay. All right. Yeah, so you'll have, so obviously your ventilation, your HVAC is gonna be a big thing, right? To make sure you're controlling all those fumes and smells and all that stuff.
got to go up to the mic and he's going to talk.
Okay, I will.
Hi, my name is Felipe Escoto. I'm part of the purchasing team for Gestamp. This is a technology. There's welding, but we do not generate fumes. The fumes are covered through inside extraction. We use RoboVent, so
Okay.
we don't take the fumes outside. It's
It gets
recirculated
recycled and,
inside.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
No,
we
I'm
don't take
familiar. I was a body shop manager.
Yep.
So for Chrysler, so I know, that's why I'm just trying to understand what your function is, because it wasn't clear. Okay, yeah, I mean, first, I think it's a great facility. I mean, I think it's great you guys are trying to come to Chesterfield, so I'm all for the facility. I just wanted to understand what it is. So, no random, just all random orders, but just notes when I was reviewing your plans. So, so the depth of the detention pond, has that all been calculated, how deep the detention pond is and all that stuff based on runoff and everything?
I'll have PA answer that question on the
All
depth.
right. No problem.
Good evening. I'm Eric Iverson with PEA Group, 3135 Pine Tree Road in Lansing, 48917. So the detention pond is designed, what you see on the plans, it's designed for the bank full flood and the first flush in accordance with the Macomb County Public Works standards. And then it's proposed that the 100-year detention is within the open drain body. We have met with them. They are considering that. They've allowed other developments in the area to do that, so we're asking for the same consideration. And so, but it is, they will, what is shown there, the detention that's shown there is to treat the first flush and to control the bank full flood.
Got it.
And so, and then we'll have 2 feet of standing water in the bottom of it at all times, because that's required by, for the first flush treatment standards from the county.
Okay. Yeah, just because I was looking at it and I think I counted 10, so, I mean, is each one of those 1 foot
Yeah.
depth mark? So this is like 10 feet
It's deep.
but it's deep. That's why I was like, it's a lot of, I mean, it's a lot, I understood it, and so it looks like you're putting a perimeter fence up around the whole thing? Around the whole site, so does that, because I thought when it's that deep.
Yeah,
I
there's
thought
no
you gotta-
perimeter fence proposed.
Okay.
And then all the slopes in the detention area, and then there's a drainage swale on the west side of the building.
Mhm.
Those are,
Yep.
all the water will back up into that drainage swale in the larger storm events. And those are all at 1/6 or flatter slopes. So, they're not required to be fenced under the township or the county standards.
Okay, yeah, that's what I just wanted to check and make sure that it was either sloped or, because the depth does creep you out.
Very deep.
So, yeah, and no, because I understood how you're draining it. I mean, everything goes to collection, comes to here, and your west perimeter road, basically, you just did curb cuts and it just flows to the surface. So, no, I understood. Okay, so that's good. How are your roof drains tied into? Because that's what I didn't see, like, because, you know, with 500,000 square feet,
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta have intermediate roof drains, you're gonna have perimeter roof drains, they gotta be collected somewhere. And so where are you running that, especially the stuff that's on the west side of the building, because you're surface draining everything?
Yeah, so if you would go to the utility plan, it would be sheet 6A0. It's at the end, it's at the end of the sixes. So this is the, oops.
You said C60?
Yeah, yeah, 6.0A, so it's after 6.3. It's a whole site. Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't think I seen anything, because all we see is the building is just a big box, and I was just curious how you were going to.
I can't tell if this is the revised set or not. It looks like, because we submitted an original and then we revised it.
Oh, did you?
So I can't tell if that, if you can go to our front sheet, I can tell
Yeah, I
you
have
whether
the
it's
old plan.
revised set or not. Because this is a landscape plan here. Yes, that's the revised set. So you can see that C6.0A, and it should be It's actually, it's in the wrong order, and the set, I have to apologize, when we published the PDF, it got to the end of the, there it is right there. So zoom into the front of the building, and then what you'll see is there are roof leads that go into the storm sewer system on the east side.
Yep.
And then on the west side, well, if you can pan to the other direction, yeah, and zoom in. We have culverts under the road there, and then at the building, you'll see some things that are not doors, but those are the downspouts. They'll be discharged onto the ground in the back there. They'll flow to the culvert, they'll go under the drive, and then go through the swale to the south, to the detention area. The reason, there's a couple reasons we did it that way.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, so if you look on the plans, they have potential future expansion area. So we didn't want to build a ton of infrastructure in there, hundreds of thousands of dollars of infrastructure that would basically have to be torn out if they expand.
If they
And
expand
so
to
we're
the
not
west.
asking for the expansion now, but it's designed to be able to do that in a reasonably economical and functional manner.
So is the tributary area of the drift drains that are on the west side of the building, is the building basically split in half? So everything from the center to the east is being drained to the detention pond? Everything from the center to the west is being drained to surface?
Exactly, yes.
Huh. Interesting. I've done a lot of these facilities. We've never surface drained it before. That's why I was surprised. But, so that is what you're doing. And I assume, and that's, I guess it's acceptable as long as you're controlling it on your site.
Yeah, it's all.
Because that's a lot of flow. I mean, that's a lot of building.
There's all kinds of ways, and actually, in today's modern world, so before it was, just put in a big pipe,
Yeah.
But now we want these methods that are environmentally friendly, so they swales, they actually treat the storm water, and they actually count as part of the first flush treatment. And so, I mean, it's not what we typically do because we pave the whole sites always, but in this case, we've got a big green space. We can use the
No, I could definitely
low
see
impact development.
Yeah, I can see it being cool if you're doing like bioswales, right?
Yeah,
You're
and
using
that's what-
native, and so are you doing that here? Are you
This
gonna
is,
do any
yes, I mean,
bioswales?
we met with the Public Works and they consider this a bioswale.
Okay.
With the check dams in it and so forth. It's a very flat swale, and it'll have check dams in it that will treat the storm water before it gets to the pond.
Okay. Yeah, if it's bioswales, that's good. I mean, that's what you're trying to do, so I just didn't see anything on bioswales, but I might have missed it, so. All right, that's, your sanitary that, I only noticed, I think it was like a 4-inch sanitary going to the east.
Say it again?
I think it was a 4-inch sanitary line. Is that
No,
just?
there's
gotta be
the
something
Colorado's court has a 10-inch sanitary line in it, and we're using that.
So, but I didn't, so I saw the sanitary going to the east. I guess my question was, so obviously you have a restroom in the administrative building. How are you managing restrooms within the 500,000 square foot? Are you using like Porta King type?
That's the building people, so I don't know how they're doing it inside. I'm inside.
Yeah, there'll be shop bathrooms in the building.
So you're gonna use like Porta King, those modular ones or something that are
No,
prefabricated?
there'll be fixed bathrooms and,
Oh, so you will be doing that?
Yeah.
Okay. And all tied into that 10-inch that goes to the, okay, yeah, just because I was trying to understand how that was working. So you had mentioned that you were only expecting like 5 to 6 trucks a day, but you have 26 docks. I thought that was kind of an odd thing. Why 26 docks if your truck traffic is only 5 to 6? I mean, it didn't make sense to me.
I think, I'm not sure that counts exactly right on the docks. Yeah, I think the docks are actually less.
Well, no, you got 20 on the south, you got 5 on the west,
Yeah, but I
and then
think
you got 1 surface.
it's been lowered since this has been published.
I didn't think so. It looked like, did it? Yeah, is that the new one? It still says the same.
It does, but so it's going to get revised again, so
Okay.
there'll be less.
Yeah, just because, understand the traffic. I mean, I didn't have an issue with the docks being in the side yard as much just because it's facing south. It's facing another industrial building and looks like you have screening there. So It's just that when you said 5 to 6, it, you know, because that was one of my comments was 26 docks. I mean, it's a lot of docks.
We were actually asking this question as the other presenter was on, because I didn't know that answer. So the text actually says 5 to 7, but, you know, that's the
Okay.
information I have.
So 5 to 7, but you're saying it's less? Yeah, so you're saying the 26 docks, you're saying on the revised one, it's much less?
So, part of our standards, we don't need that many docks. Keep in mind, we are leasing the building through J.B. Donaldson. So I guess you're gonna keep the building when we leave in 15 years, 20 years, 30 years now, they're gonna be leasing the building.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a big building to have that few docks, right? So
Yeah.
the next purpose of this building could be a warehouse building. So, and this wouldn't be enough to, even the number of docks that we have here wouldn't be enough to service
Okay.
this building this size. So, I mean, none of us are gonna know what's gonna happen in the next 15, 20 years, so.
Yeah, no, of course. No, I hear you. I listened to those things and.
But yeah, these docks aren't
Doesn't make
necessarily all
much
for them.
sense. But, and also just so we understand the amount of truck traffic that's coming in there. I mean, it is an industrial park, but still, I mean, if you're telling us 5 to 6 and it's really 50, that's an
Yeah,
issue that
no,
we need
no,
to
that
know
would
from a
be an
planning
issue. I agree.
perspective. Okay, understood. That substation that DT is building, you got that future site on the north end, is that specifically for this building?
It
Is that
is.
like some agreement you got in place?
No, I
with
mean,
them?
we're working on it, right? So there's a
Okay.
whole power plan that's being well thought out. I mean, power's not easy to get anymore.
I know.
So, we have a phased power ramp-up schedule, and ultimately with the substation, being the ultimate solution for the building, about, you know,
Okay.
9,000 KVA or so.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's what I just want to understand, so that you are working on that.
We are.
Yeah, because that takes
Hard.
a while for them to do.
We're working on it hard.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I
Yeah.
worked for DT for a long time, that's hard to get from, and it takes a while. So the building, I assume, is sprinkled, and it's fully.
It's fully
right,
sprinkled. It has
fully
an
sprinkled
ESFR
and all that.
system. Yep.
You don't have any dry systems or nothing, it's just wet?
Mhm.
Okay. And I did see that sidewalk as well. I mean, typically, we always require a sidewalk. So that sidewalk will have to definitely
Yeah,
look
it's not an issue. We're just,
Yeah, I was
we're
gonna
moving
say.
really fast, so
Yeah.
we'll get it in.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm very for it. I mean, I think it's a great, spent a lot of time manufacturing. I love these kind of buildings, so I'm definitely for it, but we just gotta make sure it's right. I mean,
I get it.
You know, especially because you got that sports facility, so kids will ride their bike. I mean, I used to ride my bike back there with my kids all the time. You know, my first house was in that area, so, you know, we definitely wanna make sure we connect the sidewalks and all that good stuff. The foot candles, my last question is around the foot candles. I did notice that when I was looking at the photometric, there's quite a variation in your foot candles, which I thought was kind of odd. Like when I look, like, I mean, you go from anywhere from like, all within the same parking lot, you go down, you know, like, I look in the center of the parking lot, it's like 0.8 foot candles, which typically I never really go less than 1. It's in a parking lot, it's kind of, usually you want it lit, you know, all the way up to like, I mean, 8.8 in some spots, up to 9.4. I mean, I didn't quite understand the variations. I mean, typically you want uniform lighting throughout a parking lot, and typically I thought it was more than 1 foot candle. I didn't think it was below 1 foot candle.
Typically, it's 1, but,
Yeah,
I mean,
typically-
we're gonna
yeah,
meet the ordinance.
Typically, it's at least 1 or more, is
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
mean,
saying, and-
the details for the pole heights aren't on there. We
Okay.
need to add those.
Yeah.
We need to get consistent on the foot coverage.
Correct.
And we'll meet the ordinance
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah. No, other than that, I mean, that's my thoughts. Again, I thought it was a well laid out site. I mean, I understood the two, I didn't have any any issues with the two entries and exits, because I know what you're trying to do there. So it's like site circulation. So those are my comments, Mr. Miller. I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. Talked about manufacturing warehouse. Did you say 380 employees?
Yes, but Scott, if you wanna.
Yeah, once we're up to full, we believe we'll have about 390 employees.
390, okay, thank you. You talked about being environmentally friendly, you talked about expansions. Brian brought up the number of docks. You said robotics and welding, correct? Is there gonna be any hazardous material there? When I hear EV and batteries, I wonder about any hazardous material that.
No, because, again, we'll be bringing steel parts in.
Okay.
And it's just welding and assembly.
Great.
So there won't be any hazardous materials.
Perfect, thank
We're
you for
not doing
clarifying.
any painting or anything like that.
Yeah, my only concern was there was some residential that back up there, so I just wanted to make sure, and then you got the retention pond right there, so, okay, thank you.
Mr. Klanowski, I mean, Mr.
Nothing,
Kowalski?
nothing from me.
Mr. Leonard?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. LaBelle?
A few comments, if you don't mind. You know, you heard an awful lot in our prior public hearing about traffic. This facility dumps out onto Sierra Drive. Sierra Drive goes out to Foster. Foster turns into 24 Mile Road. There is a possibility that somebody could, you know, large trucks, equipment, coming out of your facility, going through residential neighborhoods to make their way to I-94. There is a way to make their way through. We currently have a development, another subdivision being built at Baker and Washington, which is greatly going to impact traffic. I personally would like to see a no left turn out of your facility for trucks. Keep the trucks out of the neighborhoods and what have you. The employees, I can understand if they do that, but I would like to see the trucks kept away. We don't have a letter from Selfridge, do we? We didn't receive anything from Selfridge. Typically, they would respond to something like this, being the location.
I'm sure the applicant will discuss with the truck traffic being Sierra Drive right up to 23 is going to probably be closer to 94 than going out the other way.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
understand where we're coming from on that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Logically, it would make sense that the trucks have no real business to make that left turn.
Plus, you got the traffic light at Sierra and 23 and with a left turn light, which they're going to need, so.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I don't see a response from
Nothing from
Selfridge, but doesn't mean we didn't get one, but I don't see it.
Okay, thank you. There was what about the, there's existing screening on the site that separates your property from the other. There was gaps in the screening. That's all going to be addressed
Yeah.
and
We're going to fill the
taken care of?
gaps.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
You said there was going to be 390 employees. Is that like 390 employees over how many shifts? Because you only have 300 parking spots.
Right, we anticipate, we're gonna have 3 shifts.
Okay.
And we're looking at, on a day shift, would have 45 salaried employees, and then the remainder would be broken evenly among, so you'd be looking at maybe 160, 170 on the day shift. But you wouldn't see that many people there at one time to go
Okay.
over the 300 spots. But, correct, it will be higher at that time, yes.
And Jonathan, can we approve this without seeing the right drawings with the 10 truck stalls and they have 20? How is that going to work? Table them until they get the,
I think we're gonna, yeah, I mean, in an effort time, I'd like to just leave the drawing the way it is and not reduce the truck wells. But the explanation for the amount of truck wells, I'll leave stand, which is to say, they don't have a lot of truck traffic and it's more developer-driven than it is client-driven.
sidewalks?
We do need to add those.
I mean, that's stuff that's pretty minor, can be reviewed administratively, so.
Okay. You're okay with it? Okay with that, administrative? Okay.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of administratively, personally. I mean, because my philosophy is they should address our comments and they should provide accurate drawings. I've shared that opinion many times, right? We're asked to approve something that's not accurate. So my recommendation, for my recommendation as a board member, no, they need to update their drawings, requesting, what they're requesting. it should have all the things that we include on it. And if that's something they can do within the next 2 weeks, we'll see them the first week.
What are the outstanding issues besides the sidewalk?
No.
Just curious, because I mean,
Yeah.
the sidewalk is it's an engineering issue. There's a set location and a set standard that, I mean, either they're gonna meet it or not. I don't know, because from what I understood, the docks are gonna stay the same.
Yes, docks are gonna stay the same.
No, it's not
Yeah.
just that. I mean, it's the lighting, the photometrics, it's the light poles. It's, I mean, I can try to go through my memory and open up my notes again, but I mentioned it once already. They should have took notes, and then they can, I mean, for my comments, but I mean.
I was
there's
just
others.
asking for my,
Yeah, there's
my
other-
clarification, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
up to the discretion
I
of the
mean,
planning commission what
think
they
that
wanna
they
do.
should I think they should adjust for that and make those clarifications on it. I mean, that's my recommendation, but I mean, we're a board, I mean, I'm open for it, but, I mean, they're gonna have to, the light poles can be anywhere from 25 to 35 feet. So what are they gonna be doing?
Rick had a comment on the lights, didn't you?
Yeah.
The lighting representative may have raised the elevation of the light fixtures to project more light, and throw the light farther away from the building than what 25 feet would accomplish. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I was okay with the 32 feet. I
32
didn't have an
feet.
issue. What I meant was the photometrics though right now need to be corrected.
And that would be part of my motion, is that,
Yeah.
that would have to be handled administrative, because I was
Yeah.
going to, during my motion, talk about sidewalks and the photometric study. As far as, you had talked about drainage and.
Yeah, the other stuff I understood. Yeah, I mean,
detention,
yeah, I think
engineering
if you cover
functions.
that, I'm fine with all that. Yeah, that's fine.
You're gonna address that in your motion, right, Rick, on the things that have to be addressed administratively? Okay, I'm fine with that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the warehouse facility site plan 2023-13. It's at the 23 Square Complex. ID parcel is 150916275-003. The address is 52153 Sierra Drive. As part of my motion, there are some items that need to be addressed administratively, one being sidewalks, and the second is adjusting the photometric plan for more conformity on the plan. With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Oh, I'm sorry, as well as addressing the screening issues on the property line.
Support. We have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Klinowski. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comment from the floor as permitted by the commission on non-agenda items.
Okay, thanks.
For non-agenda items, comments from the floor.
Mike Brainer, Jack Grove Lane. Just a money issue that I don't think has been covered. I unfortunately couldn't make it in time for the beginning of the meeting. But I know our state senator, Kevin Hertel, is in charge of the Transportation Committee. And in talking to the Board of Trustees, and I visit with them 2 Tuesdays a month, we have $5 million coming from the Transportation Committee for Chesterfield Township. And I'm just wondering, I know that's a drop in the bucket when I listen to all of these millions for this and millions for that. I guess 5 million isn't a whole lot of money. But I'm kind of curious if any of that money can be used for some of these issues that have been raised this evening. One of the big issues, I think, is well, of course, the traffic is unbelievable. I mean, it's great that we have all that additional parking, which just means we have that many additional cars coming to that ridiculous intersection. So I just kind of wonder what that $5 million might be used for. I know we're going to also use it to improve the frontage of Gratiot, which is a trash heap as it is. So anyway.
That doesn't
just
have
kinda
anything to do with the planning commission.
I just kind of wondered about that $5 million, basically. And I must add this as well, if I may. This pathetic participation is so typical of our nation today. We have all these major issues. We're spending millions of dollars, and the public just kind of don't pay any attention. They bitch when, when, you know, the tax bills come and we have to pay for this and that they never had any comment on. So I just think our lack of participation is not only sad and disgusting, but I think it's dangerous too, because we're just sitting aside, not paying any attention. The only people that speak are the extremes on one end of the issue or the other. So it would be nice if we would come together and maybe kind of do things as a township and as a state and as a country. So anyway, I'm not sure about that $5 million, but if that is available, I know, through transportation. So if that's helpful at all for some of the issues that have been raised, I just thought I would mention that availability. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 8 is non-agenda related communications. We did have one letter from, but she was here, I think, on that. Yeah, Chick-fil-A. Receive and file all comments regarding agenda items, committee reports, ordinance reports, board liaison reports, reviews and discussions from members of the commission, consultants, and township employees. Commissioner comments? Ralph?
I just got one. I thought the Bass Brew and Barbecue, or whatever the name of that event was at Brandenburg Park, was outstanding, and I just really think that we need more of that here in the township to bring everyone together. I thought it was great. It was a good use of the space. It was good use of our resources, and it was a good way to bring people together. So I thought it went well.
Thanks. Mr. Klonowski? No. Mr. Leonard?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. LaBelle?
Well, I'm looking for volunteers for pre-planning, first of all.
What's on the agenda?
Nothing yet.
My time is well used.
I'll be there, Rick.
Rich and Carl.
Carl and Rich?
All right, we'll let Carl do it.
Mr. Demink?
As you guys all know, if you didn't, the Township Board did pass your recommendation to deny the rezoning to M2 on Bates Road. It was a 4-3 vote. I'd like to thank everyone again for all their input tonight. And sir, regarding the money, this board has nothing to do with it. These are all residents, just like you. Money, issues on spending is the Township Board. I just want to clarify that, but these gentlemen don't have anything. I'm the only elected, like they're residents just like you. So I just wanted to, so you understand that they weren't disregarding anything you said, but they don't have any input on anything like that, sir.
But
Thank you.
There's no back. I just wanted to address your comments.
Yeah, but we should acknowledge, though, I do agree that there needs to be a healthy debate in this nation. And I think I brought it up earlier about bringing constructive things to the table, like some of the residents did tonight. So
Right.
I agree with you, sir.
Mr. Brokart?
I'm all set, thank you.
Mr. Renault?
I'm all set.
Mr. Carr?
Nothing new.
Nothing? Really?
Nothing.
How was your vacation?
It was really awesome. I told you it was
With
sweet.
that, I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:04. Support. We have a support by all in favor?